What's going on? Finally hit 300 subs, and it was just like not even a full month ago that I was just climbing to 100, so the channel's been growing. I really appreciate it, and it really helps me know that you guys appreciate the videos I've been putting out, and helps me go forward because I've got big plans, big project coming up, and I'm just so excited that I can put out the best videos I possibly can for you guys. Because going forward, with what I have planned, of course, I'm going to be calcing things, and if there's anything, I'm very straightforward. I don't try to hide things. I, try to always be as accurate as humanly possible. And some of it's going to be a learning process. But I'll show you the amount of work that I'm putting into it. I know if anybody who's, viewed me for a long enough time knows that I care about being accurate too much to just skimp on little details. And I'll be transparent with any questions that anybody has. But I really want to make this something special, something I'm excited about. I will be showing a couple calcs for very, very early Yu Hakusho just to get a start so you guys can see what I'm talking about. And it's going to be really great. So listen, look, if you're here because you like seeing calcs or finding out how strong a verse is, how strong a character is, I don't plan on just sticking just to Yu Hakusho for sure. I had videos before Yu Hakusho, it kind of blew up, which I love, cool. But I am ready to calc a bunch of other series. If you enjoy that, stick around, just subscribe. Just do it. Just subscribe right now. Because we're going to have plenty of great videos coming. We're going to have a lot of fun doing it. And we're going to get down and really accurate. So you can use all my videos as a reference point. I want to make it clear. This is going to be something that you're going to like. So how am I going to do my scaling? So, as always, of course, I'm trying to be as accurate as possible. So how do I do it? What am I going to be looking to do? So I'm going to cover a few basic concepts before I get into the actual calcs themselves so I can use them as an example. So I'm going to be looking over, aside from obviously the numbers and mathematics behind the feats, but I'm going to lowball. Look, if you come to my videos and you're like, they're stronger than this, you can make an argument that maybe their whole tier different, then we need to look at something. But when you look, if you ever try to nitpick anything I'm saying, I want you to understand, before you do that, come to the realization I'm probably lowballing. Now the reason I do this, and I've said this before and I'll say it here again, lowballing to me is about accuracy. I'll use this same example as I've used before. Let's say that there is a jar of candy that can hold 500 pieces of candy. We don't know how much it can hold. We have 3 people saying various things. One person says there are 400 pieces of candy in there. Let's also say it's filled, right? So it's got 500. There are 400 pieces in there. And person number 2 says, no. There are 600 pieces. And then person number 3 says there are at least 300 pieces. To be very clear, only person 3 is correct. It doesn't matter that 400 is closer to 500 than the 300. It doesn't matter that 400 is within the 500. And of course, the 600 is quite off. At least 300 is the only correct option there. And that is the purpose of lowballing. We might not be able to know there's even be as close as 400 as a pure guess, but we can at least lowball such that we are correct with our statements. There's at least 300 in there, right? So that is the point. That is the purpose of lowballing. Now, I will additionally be breaking down destructive feats down to AP, attack potency, and I will show the total joules versus the joules per centimeter cubed of attacks and such. Now to be clear, when I'm breaking down something so tiny into centimeters cubed, that will cause the AP numbers to essentially always be smaller than just destructive value. That'll be nerfing what you might assume a feat would be. You could take something that is the size of a mountain, that destroys a mountain, and down to the centimeter cubed, it might not even be building level. Just as an example, I'm throwing these terms out there just to give you an example. The numbers will be quite a bit lower when something is confined down to the centimeter. But I need to do it, and I will qualify all of this. But this is how I'll be doing it, is with the joules of energy down to the centimeter cubed. You have things like Toguro's air flicks with his thumb, right? I need to break it down to a standardized value system, and that is going to be joules per centimeter cubed. Just so you know, going forward, that's what this will be using. Now, another thing I will not be doing is I will not calc stack. This involves things like my very first feat that I'll be scaling here, which is, without getting into the Hiei thing, calc stacking would be like, this person moved X distance within X amount of time. And so they come out to Mach 3, for example. And you go, okay, well, given their Mach 3, off of this actually calcing it, this other person blitzes them. And based on their reaction time, with them being Mach 3, from my calc, this person must be this number, and I'm going to calc that new number based on my previous calc. That is stacking a calc on top of another one. That is a no-go, that's bad. I mean, on the surface, it seems like it would be logical, but you actually get astronomically outlier numbers that never make sense. It just doesn't work in practice. I'm sorry, it just really doesn't work when it's actually borne out in, like, if you were to spreadsheet it. So we are not calc stacking. We instead will be lowballing. Calc stacking bad, lowballing good. Talking about good and bad, pixel scaling. This is something I will use, actually, under one condition, only one. Look, the size of things being compared, being pixel scaled, need to be relative to each other in size and not distorted by bad angles. If you are trying to compare the pixels of Sensui to a mountain, that just doesn't work. Comparing something like Maze Castle to a mountain, that does work, okay? Because look, for pixel scaling, here's why. The smaller the things are, the more accurate. For example, if you measure out 1 pixel as half an inch, and you're wrong by, say, 2 pixels, like your character's head is off by the 2 pixels too short. So in total, your character's head is 1 inch, or their total height rather, is off by a full inch. They're a short 1 inch. That's not the biggest problem. 1 inch, if compared to other people their size, might make everybody else around them 1 inch shorter or 1 inch taller, however you do it, right? Because they're relative to their size, so you're only off by that 2 pixels all around. But let's say instead you are comparing someone like that same one person where you're off by the 2 pixels, you're off by an inch, they're really an inch small, you are making them an inch smaller than they really are. If you were to compare them to, say, like a mountain-sized object, it is no longer them being off by 2 pixels once, compared to somebody of equal size. Instead, now you're off by those 2 pixels a multi-thousands of times over, as you divide what you thought was the correct amount of pixels into this mountain's worth of pixels. You're off by multiple thousands of pixels in height. And now the mountain is just screwed. It is totally incorrect, and everything you built off of it is now incorrect. This is that's dangerous. So, will I use pixel scaling? It depends, and that's what my rubric will be. So, hopefully that's understood. Hopefully I can fit all these points in a bullet form on the screen for you, because I record before I actually do anything for, editing wise. So, good luck, future me. Alright, let's jump into some of the calcs. Now, right off the bat, I'm going to start off with the lowest of the low. We're going to talk about Goki, right? Remember him? Remember this trash level garbage person? Well, let's get into some numbers. The first thing to notice with Goki is that his hand is quite a bit bigger than Yusuke's head. Now, we can get a better perspective when he's actually smashing the tree here. And along the x-axis, because previous, of course, he's further back, so it gives a bit of a warped sense. So when we actually see them more so closely compared, his hand is still a decent bit bigger than Yusuke's head, but not by too much, not as much as it showed in the other, panel. But how big is that? What is the volume of a head? So I was very lucky to come across this right here. This is a PDF that talks about the mass, volume, and specific gravity of different body segments. And it even goes down to, you'll see here, the volume in cubic centimeters. Lucky for me. And so the head of a male, about age 30, comes out to about 3,453.3 cubic centimeters. And what this means is that his hand is approximately there. This would be a bit bigger than Yusuke's head, of course, and so is his hand. This is a pretty good and nice, easy number to use. Actually, it's not nice and easy, but we have it in PDF. It's very accurate to use, rather, which is important. Now, the next thing we need to look at is if we look at the feet, you see the tree, he crumples it with the first hit, and then here in the last bottom right, he crushes it. Now, I want to make this clear, when he's crushing this tree, you gotta think, this superhuman monster guy, who's simultaneously the weakest person in all of Yu Yu Hakusho, I mean, not at this point, but, you know. Smashing a tree like that isn't like punching a tree, okay? It's not like where he goes over here and he, snaps the tree in half with a punch. No. That's much too easy. Taking a tree and gripping it and smashing it the way he did here is like the difference of punching a tree in half and placing your fist against the tree and pushing against it. Like he's literally squeezing it, like, you know, a stress ball or something. He's squeezing it to the point where the entirety of the tree is crushed. The whole thing. This takes far more effort than punching, okay? So this would be lowballing what he could be doing with a punch. He's at least this by a good amount. So, how much force does it take to smash a tree approximately of this size, like to this level? Well, we can get an idea. If we look here, we have like wood strengths. And what I ended up using was a red cedar tree because I don't know trees. I tried looking across multiple different types of trees and such, but until I get a better look for like what kind of tree is exactly these trees, I went with a good old friend lowballing, and 4,500 approximately like PSI. This is the PSI number, pounds per square inch. You'll see here. That's a pretty low number. You'll see also here, like all of these numbers for PSI tend to be all higher. We have like one here that's lower. I'm using a pretty low-end tree, okay? Additionally, this whole process, once more, I cannot stress enough, this is not a punch. His punching would be much higher than this. And it's even lowballed further because to compress parallel to grain max crushing strength means this is tested where they're lowering like a weight across it. They're compressing it to where it begins to crack. They are like, okay, it has begun to crack. It has its first inclination of actually like beginning to be crushed. This is where we stop. It no longer can take anymore, or it will completely be crushed. Goki doesn't just crack the inside of it, right? Like there's gonna be a crack just internally. No, he smashes the whole thing. You can see even bits and pieces flying off of it. He's far exceeding the base required PSI to pull off what he's doing. So in using, wow, I went right to it. That was good. And using this number here, it is massively, massively higher than this. So we'll use this number. So now that we have the size of his hand, as well as the generalized PSI required to smash red cedar, for the tree, we can get an idea on just how strong this actual feat is. So when we go for it, we're going to look at PSI, because an important thing with PSI is we cannot actually get pounds per square inch to joules of energy easily. And what I found is I needed to convert it several times, and I really looked at a bunch of different ways. Another thing with, you can see here, is the wood handbook. So with red cedar, we have 31,400 kPa. And when I did the math, the kPa, actually, that is what the PSI converts to. So you'll see here the 31 million 398,000, blah, 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 blah. Pounds per square inch into pascals, right? So this is the pascals amount. That's why this is the compression parallel to grain in kPa. K, of course, is kilo, meaning 1,000. So 1,000 pascals, so it's 31,400 times 1,000, coming out to the 31 million, right? And with our actual amount of pascals, that's what's needed to actually go from PSI into joules of energy. So we have pascals, and pascals converts into joules of energy. Here we go. This would probably be the easiest. We can look here and here. So like, for example, for joules to pascals, a pascal is multiplied by the amount of meters cubed to get joules. Now, for those who remember, basic math, to convert that into joules, it's just, to get a joule, that's like converted to pascals instead of pascals to joules. It'd be joules divided by the meter cubed, or joules per meter cubed. You can see here, it also shows it, 1 pascal equals 1 newton per meter squared equals 1 kilogram per meter times, you get the idea. Well, one of the conversions is 1 pascal equals 1 joule per meter cubed. And this is how we convert PSI to joules of energy. Joules of energy will give us exactly what we are looking for, which is great. That is what we want. How many joules of energy are we looking at behind his ability to crush this tree, right? This right here. Well, doing the math, if you are reading here, if you pause it or read like from some of these numbers, not all these numbers are guaranteed to be correct. Like this, I'm not sure. This, I'm not sure anymore because I stopped using like pounds per cubic centimeter here. These were footnotes. What you really want to focus on is this, okay? So we have the PSI to the pascals. Pascal converted down, we get the idea here. So this is like him squeezing, for like kilograms worth, he's squeezing with like 31,389,000, yada yada yada, kilograms per meter, like per second squared. So because you gotta consider, like he's squeezing and it's not like he just squeezes and it's just like one and done. Like he's constantly squeezing. So this amount of joules of energy that I'm about to tell you is by the second. Each and every second he can put out this many joules. So again, what's the amount of joules? This boy, Monster Man, can put out at full, okay, that's his entire full hand. This is taking in the full 3,453.3 cubic centimeters worth of hand. He's putting out 108,429 joules of energy, or this number here, as you can see, to 10 to the 5th power, if you want it in that notation. This comes out to about low wall end level, meaning just with his ability to squeeze per second, he can put out enough joules that could actually destroy like entire walls. This is not his ability to punch. This is his ability to simply grip. And people, think of any person, okay? Again, note that this is huge lowballs on how much he can squeeze too, because we're going off of like just an internal crack compared to this feat here, we actually smashes the entire thing. Very lowballs here. The force of a punch that a person can apply is massively larger than the force of their crushing. So what I'm trying to do here is show the weakest feat that the weakest person could do, okay? This is the lowest end of what Yu Hakusho has to offer. And it is on the low end of wall level joules of energy. Now when we break it down to the cubic centimeter, however, we are getting merely 31.39 yada yada joules per centimeter cubed. Now I want to give you an idea. When I'm talking about centimeters cubed, I want you to think of like, what's the size of an inch then? Like if you were to make a cube in length, width, and height out of just an inch, how small is that, right? Get an idea on like the actual size. It's really tiny. What I want to make this clear is that I need you to go down to the size of a centimeter. make a cube out of that. If you were to confine that space into, like, the amount of joules of energy into each one of those amounts of space that makes up the entirety of his hand, that comes out to 31.39, joules. That comes out to about the amount of joules of energy you could expect from a teenager hitting you, okay? A full, like an actual 13-year-old, 14-year-old, like, straight up attacking you. Now, sure, they might not be able to harm you if you just sit there, deflect them, if you're like a grown adult or whatever, But I want to make it clear, like, you're not about to take that to the eye, right? You're not going to have a 14-year-old, like, just actually wail on you and you act like you're not ever getting hurt. Well, wait a second. You're talking about a teenager hitting someone, or hitting you, or hitting whatever, right? Their total joules of force that they can apply to, like, whatever given surface area, imagine that total force was amplified down to the size of a cubic centimeter. Let me actually pull that up. I'm sure I can find a good picture. So yeah, I wanted to show you this here. Like, you can see, of course, the picture is bigger here than what, like, an actual centimeter. Like, this isn't actually 10 centimeters across right here. But let's just say we're using this. This is not a cubic centimeter, but let's say this one here, what's labeled as a cubic centimeter. Let's say that was the actual size. You're talking about, like, the totality force that a teenager could be put behind with, like, actual punches and things. But all of that is not within, like, their hand, but within this amount of space hitting you, right? Like, less than the size of, or about the size of a bullet if you were using this picture rather than an actual cubic centimeter, right? That would actually pierce you, like, it would pierce pro boxers, bodybuilders, if, like, a teenager was to hit them, but, like, all that force was confined into such a small space. Goki is that. Goki's totality force is hitting where he's hitting with the force of, like, a teenager's worth of total force down to the cubic centimeter. So that's where the math actually shows. AKA the totality force altogether is low end wall level. What this also means is, aside from being at the lowest end, however, is when we're looking at like attack potency, that's where the 31 comes in. So this is why I break it down to the per cubic centimeter. Could he actually have his hand go all the way around Yusuke's arm? Right? You can see here his arm compared to his hand. It's impossible. He simply could not apply the full totality force to his hand. His durability for his arm does not need to be able to match Goki's, like, total, like, high, like, this many joules of force, okay, or joules of energy. Like, his durability doesn't need to match this number, because Goki cannot apply this number to his arm. Instead, what we would be looking at if we're talking about attack potency is, so if he can't do it to his arm would only need to have, like, fractions of that durability. If we wanted the potency to be the actual full joules of energy here, the full 108,000 joules of energy, the small, like, low-end wall level of force, he would need to be gripping his, say, torso or something. This is why potency matters. The size of the attack and what it can do versus the durability, like the size as well of the person and the durability of what they're hitting, right? So this is why I break it down to the cubic centimeter, because there is nothing on Yusuke that is smaller than a cubic centimeter, meaning Yusuke must, per cubic centimeter, must be able to have at least this much durability, or durability to overcome this many joules, or else he will be crushed like that tree. Okay, so this is why this number would be able to apply to somebody on Yusuke regardless of where he's attacked or where he's hit. Got it? Now, that's a strength feat. Low end wall level, it's obviously higher, but let's go on towards the next feat I wanted to show is a low end of Hiei, and the slowest he could be. But you'll be able to see this Hiei feat here. Now, we have seen this before, but I want to make it clear. Look, you cannot sit there and calc stack and say, let's say Yusuke was to vanish from Hiei's perspective. Hiei is not human, okay? He doesn't have human reactions. He's much faster. He's much superior to a base human. Meaning, if you're trying to say that, oh, Yusuke disappeared from him, you cannot actually mathematically, in a proper sense, determine how much faster he is, because you cannot determine like the actual reaction speed of Hiei in this case, or another given character who's faster than human. We don't have standardized numbers to use there. But for this feat, we do. Yusuke is either your average human in reaction speed, or he is peak human, and we can use those as low balls. Okay? So let's actually look at some of that. First, I want to put it here. What is the fastest human reaction time? Well, the fastest comes down to 0.101 seconds, with the average reaction time being about 0.215 seconds. Now, why this is important is, look, they're not just doing it like, oh, he guessed, or oh, he got lucky, this is 0.101 seconds. Okay, this would be across multiple tests, and this would be probably about the average. In terms of like, this person's reaction time on average is about here, where it is, we can say, yes, this person has the fastest reactions. Because I've beaten this time off of trying to make a read on when, you know, the light was gonna turn green or something, right? But the average reaction time is about 0.215. Now what this means is that you need to move X distance and under this time such that you are away where their eyes can have tracked you. Okay? Outside of their peripheral or whatever it is. Meaning, of course, that's where distance really matters. Hiei vanishes from Yusuke's sight here. And if we're gonna say that Yusuke is average human, well, I did some low ends and high ends. But you can see, Yusuke is, you know what? Actually, I need to get to his height, but I'll give you the number here. Hiei moves approximately 4 meters to the other side of Yusuke in under those given times. Now, is Yusuke average? I would say no. He's obviously peak human. But let's use low ends and high ends, okay? Because you need to make a decision here if you want to try and lowball Yu Hakusho, which I'm all for. Lowballing is cool. But there's people who try and hate, and you're going to have to make a choice. Now, looking at the numbers, if Hiei did what he did for him to do what he did to an average human, he would need to have moved approximately just about 42 miles per hour. That would be the low end. For him to have moved the distance he did in under 0.215 seconds. About 42 miles an hour. On the high end, let's say Yusuke matches at least, you know, what we have for actual human standards as the fastest. That would put Hiei at approximately 89 miles per hour. Now, the reason why this is very impressive is that Yusuke matches him with a single boost to being angered. Now, if you remember, I'm talking about like, oh, let's lowball and say a 10% increase in power is like a 2 times increase to stats, given how it always shows. Well, that's wrong now that I can use actual mathematics. Now, it was always for the purpose of lowballing, mind you, but if we actually look at it, you need to make a decision here. Are we using the low end of Hiei's about 42 miles an hour or the high end of 89 miles an hour? Well, let's look at the average human speed to the fastest human speed. If we're using the low ends, and you're saying Yusuke is indeed average, whereas Hiei only scales above average, then fine, Yusuke is average. And his average running speed would be about 5.9 miles an hour. If Yusuke is average, and Hiei only scales above average, that means Yusuke became not 2 times faster with his boost, but 7 times faster. Of course, this scales to his strength, durability, and everything else. But he got a 7 times multiplier here, not a mere 2 times multiplier. Okay? Now, if you're saying, whoa, we need to lowball Yu Hakusho because I hate it or something, people on certain things with Comic Vine and other various places. Well, if you don't want to have that 7 times multiplier, I got you. Well then, fine. You need to say that Yusuke is more in line with peak human, and he could run at least the 27.78 miles per hour like Usain Bolt. Okay? If you're going to claim that Yusuke is peak human, fine. Then his reaction speed and everything else, he's matching with peak human numbers. Those are the numbers you're going to be using. And that means Hiei scales to 89 miles per hour as one of the very first villains in the whole thing. And that still puts it as a 3.2 times multiplier in speed across, again, power, durability, and everything else. Still above a 2 times increase. I always knew that the boosts I showed were exponential above just a 2 times increase. But here's some math to show you exactly what we could get with it. This comes out to Hiei on a low end having 83 miles per hour, or on a high end 178 miles per hour, when he later ends up doing the same thing to Yusuke again. So you'll see here, he's like, all my powers now, I'm gonna kill you. Yusuke had just powered up again, mind you. Unbelievable, every time you escape, I see your increase in raid power. Yusuke just got stronger than he just was, what I was just talking about. The, 83 mile, Yusuke should be at low end about 42 miles an hour, or high end 89 miles an hour. He powers up again, okay? So he's faster than this. And Hiei, you can see in the top left, let's zoom this in here. Hiei punches Yusuke. Yusuke goes to punch him, and Hiei is already behind him again. And you can see this black blur here. That's Hiei doing the exact same feat you saw here. Okay? Right here. This is him doing it to double amped Yusuke. Now you could calc stack and get much higher numbers, but I told you I won't be doing that. So I will be sticking to my 2 times increase here on, again, what I showed. Now if I wanted to be a bit more fair to you, Hakusho, I would say that you would use these numbers again, okay? But if you just stick to 2 times increase, these are your numbers. Meaning, Yusuke got as many times as 14 times faster, if you want to say he was an average human at the beginning of this, to what, 6 something times faster if you're saying he was already peak human, and now he's mega superhuman, okay? However you try to cut it, it's far higher than the numbers I was giving. But this also shows just how fast Yu Hakusho is at the very, very start, where he goes from an average human to fighting Goki to fighting Hiei. One thing I had brought up at the beginning of all this is pixel scaling. Now, how do I know that Hiei moved about 4 meters? Well, to get that is, again, I accept pixel scaling under one condition, and that's if the pixel scaling shown can actually be within margins of astronomically small errors. It couldn't possibly be a person compared to a mountain. And this is what I'm looking at. If you see this picture here, it's essentially impossible to be off by anything astronomical. And this actually shows pretty good, estimations, where Yusuke comes out to about 1.6 meters. Because we actually have authentic, pure numbers for some heights as well. We can get ideas. So he's approximately 161 centimeters, or about 1.6 meters. So when we actually see Hiei do this, and you look at the distance he's traveled from behind Yusuke down here, if you can see my mouse, from over here, and he's traveled over here, and he's no, all of this was casual as well, mind you, in base Hiei casually. We can get it a rough estimate with lowballing of about 4.26, I believe is the number. 4.025, sorry, meters. And he does it within, this amount of time. This is how we get an actual time frame for what we're looking for. And this is how we can show just how fast Hiei in base casually is and what he scales to. And we can see the scaling that goes behind it. Yusuke didn't get amped such that he only became 2 times stronger and then 2 times stronger again. He became multiple times stronger, up to 7 times faster and stronger, from the beginning. Up to, or as low as about 3 1/3 times faster and stronger and everything, if he was already superhuman, okay? That's what makes this so impressive. Everything said, I hope this starts to give a baseline for the lowest end you could possibly do. This is the lowest end speed feats I could use, and the lowest end strength feats I could possibly use for Yu Hakusho. Of course, I could go into other ones. I also want to do some of the other series and things and other feats. I think what I really want to do is something like Sensui's Beheaded Hill feat would be something crazy, but like some of Taguro's feats as well, of course. Just a lot of the major ones, but I want to show you the lowest end I could for Yu Hakusho. And so, yeah, in the comments, hit me up with some feats you actually want to see. This is the weakest that Yu Hakusho could possibly be at, and I can show you some of the high ends. And I have done some like minor calcs already to get why I have always said like, okay, yeah, they actually come out to like large planetary. So I'm really excited. This channel will be hitting, like, as you can see, very specifics, like the actual numbers that go into things. And I want to break down everything to the amount of joules. I want to be very clear with the amount of, like, down to the cubic centimeters, because again, attacks that are too big for the targets they're hitting just simply can't apply their total joules. You don't have to have that full durability to tank it, which actually goes against big attacks. You will see, this channel, you will have pure accuracy. You won't have to get, you won't have to guess or make assumptions on how strong you think certain things are or which verse is stronger. I will additionally probably start tier listing different attacks, and that should be fun, going across different verses and showing like this attack compared to this one, and we can actually like graph what we see from like the low end attacks like Goki's all the way up to like Sensui's and all the different series in between too, like Hatekyu, Hitman Reborn, some like Suna's different feats, down to like Beelzebub, to Naruto, Bleach, of course, One Piece. Shoot, I don't think I've done One Piece on here yet. Yeah, we'll get them all, and it should be really fun. You guys are gonna love it. Again, shameless, I don't care. Look, I know you guys will enjoy this, and I know I'll enjoy doing it, and this is gonna be the one thing that really keeps me, being able to do it, where I can hopefully spend more and more time actually doing this stuff, because it is a massive time sink. It always is. I don't think any YouTuber ever says anything different. And hell yeah, I want to grow. I want this to be something that I could really share with a lot of people, because I think it's a market that's just missed. A lot of people just simply, you'll have people who do calcs, but they don't do calcs like in a YouTube series where they're trying to show like the accuracy and comparisons across different verses. And additionally, I think a lot of people do like fan calcs, which you could say I'm doing, but they do them with heavy assumptions and not generally like lowballing, especially to the degree that I think. And just on concepts alone, I think a lot of people take a lot of things for granted and make huge assumptions. This person, I'm gonna lowball, for example. Here's an example, like, I could take this same feat you see here. So yeah, I'm talking about the Hiei feat. If I was to say, Hiei dodged his spirit gun later, as he does, right? So if I was to say, what a lot of people will do for calcs is like, oh man, he dodged a spear gun, and I'm going to assume, yeah, that spear gun surely is the speed of light, because it's said to have like light speed properties. Well, that's fine and cool, whatever, but what you're doing there is you're not lowballing anymore, like on the conceptual end, because what you're doing is, if you're gonna say that's light speed, well then this feat here is no longer light speed. This isn't like 41 or 42 miles an hour to do this. Now you have to say, well, if he's dodging that, then Yusuke, who can keep up with his spirit gun, should have like nigh light speed reactions himself. So we're not talking about we're not talking about his reactions being 0.215 seconds or whatever, or 0.1. We're talking about like 0.0000000 yada yada yada, all like 20 million zeros, 1/10 of a second would be his reaction speed, and wow, he traveled 4 meters in that time? Well, let's lowball that number. Ooh, oh no, we used a lowball here. Trust me, I'm lowballing. I'm trying to be accurate here. It's like, are you though? Because sure, now you can say Hiei is like super massively faster than light off of this feat? This is what you're gonna use to say he's massively faster than light? That's what I don't like, okay? I will show you the accuracy. So look, yeah, I am asking you to subscribe, because honestly, I do want a Discord. I do want to be able to actually have a big enough audience that I can really have like this specialized platform to share a lot of these different feats with you guys that I think would be really cool. I think the community would be awesome. I know that I'm actually getting a community already of some pretty cool people that, of course, I've been able to talk to multiple times, that I can expect to comment in my on my channel, and it's really awesome. And I just want to see it grow to where I can have a community of people who actually care about having accurate takes and really, you know, just valuing, like, it's not about, oh, this series is my favorite. Like hell, Yu Hakusho is stronger than DBZ. People take like Piccolo and it's like he destroys the moon. Oh, that's moon level. Like, no, the hell it's not. Like, if it would be moon level, right? I did that in quotations, by the way. If he like destroyed the moon but with an attack the size of the moon, okay? Like, he destroyed the entirety of the moon with an attack that was astronomically small. Like, he's not moon level, he's actually small planetary off of that feat, okay? Whether you want to try and say it's an outlier or not, regardless, just that feat is small planetary in like actual potency. So this is why I'm saying you're just going to actually enjoy what you see here, and I hope you guys can appreciate that and appreciate the work that goes into it. Oh my gosh, it took so much effort trying to find all this. Like, oh my gosh, I got lucky as hell finding the PDF, though it took some work. Down to the cubic centimeter, I can find the actual volume of space for different body segments. That came in so clutch. And the joules and everything, I was trying to do like the kilograms here and newtons and everything as well. Newton meter, oh man. But now that I've got it, look, I actually enjoy this. I love math, by the way. I always have. So, but it takes work, and I know that there's a lot of people in the community who really appreciate it, and I love that we can actually build upon this and really start showing just how strong everybody is. So, I'm going to ask one more time, if you like what you've seen here, if you like the direction that it's going to be going in, if you'd like to see some different feats, of course, comment those below. But I'm going to ask one more time, please subscribe, please share, and the bigger this channel gets, the more that I can devote more time to it. I'm at a real, almost like crossroads, a real chance where I could devote full time to this. And I would love to do that. And of course, it just has to work. It just has to work. And I think it'll be great. I think you guys would all love it. I think for years to come, you'd see really great material. So I know it probably is like I'm selling this like really hard, and I am because I think this is something that I really could fulfill a niche in that just hasn't really been done enough, if at all. It's hard to find people trying to push for accuracy to such a degree. So anyways, I won't keep you any longer. Hope you guys enjoyed the video for real. Every video I put out, I really hope that it's enjoyed. And I will see you in the next video. Peace.